Alright, it's time to talk about Solo: A Star Wars Story. However, I know no matter what I say in this review, it's a no-win scenario. If I say I love the movie, then I'm a fanboy shill who was paid $1,000 off by Disney. And if I say I didn't like the movie, I'm not a true Star Wars fan. So you know what? I figure I just don't care anymore, so let's get into it. So Solo: A Star Wars Story is the next anthology film within the Star Wars universe, and in this film we journey with a very young and very brash Han Solo who gets grouped with a group of smugglers led by a man named Beckett, portrayed by Woody Harrelson, and they have to do a certain job for a gangster played by Paul Bettany, and we have ourselves an adventure film. Now, like I said at the beginning of this video, it doesn't matter really what the reaction is. Nobody hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans, because no matter what your opinion is, you're going to have some kind of negativity thrown towards it. When it comes to Solo: A Star Wars Story, I realized I had a lot of fun with the movie, but with all the negativity going towards the movie, I do understand why people would hate it and why people wouldn't exactly like it. So it seems like a pretty reasonable place to start with my negatives. For one thing, the pacing in the movie, woof. I'm not going to say that the pacing was awful all the time, but there were certain spots in the movie where it literally dragged on and felt like the movie was an extra 20-30 minutes than it needed to be. And on that point, I feel as though if Han Solo had been cut down by about 20 minutes, made it about 2 hours long, it would have been just about perfect. Another big issue this movie has is with the characterization, because although we have Han Solo, we have Lando Calrissian, and we have the introduction of a new character, Kira, played by Emilia Clarke, and we have Chewbacca, everybody else, Beckett and his entire crew, and Paul Bettany, and even some of the pirates that show up in here, they're pretty much useless. I mean, there were these major character deaths that would happen throughout the course of the film, and I thought it was a major problem when, number one, you didn't really care about any of the characters that were on screen. And number two, when you see the characters grieving, and then not 2 seconds later, they're over their grief and they're moving on with their mission. It's like, did you actually care that your best friends were killed? And I understand that people are still complaining about the whole moving from Phil Lord and Chris Miller to Ron Howard, because, you know, we have the creators and writers of 21 Jump Street. They were kicked off of the project, and then we have Ron Howard. And I'll say, out of all the things that I have going right with this movie, Ron Howard is not one of them. I think Ron Howard can be a great director when he wants to be. But in all honesty, if there's one driving force that made this movie work, it was not the director. Honestly, there were certain points in this movie that while I thought some direction was great, for the most part, I thought the direction was just fine, or it just didn't work for me at all. Now, putting those negatives aside, like I said, I know they're in there. I understand. And those are reasons people are either not going to or do not like Solo: A Star Wars Story. I get it. But I just had such a complete blast watching this thing that I can sort of put those things aside for a little bit. Now, on to my positives. Starting out, Alden Ehrenreich. I mean, the movie's called Solo: A Star Wars Story. He is one of the biggest reasons why I was nervous going into this movie. The other thing was the relationship with Chewbacca, and both were great. First of all, the meeting with Chewbacca, how they set that whole situation up, and the relationship between Han and Chewie throughout the entirety of the film, I was all on board with. I laughed many times when it came to the banter they had back and forth, and it just reminded me of the relationship that they're going to have down the road in A New Hope onward. And Alden Ehrenreich, so many people had given him so much flack for being cast as Han Solo, and I understand why. I mean, the marketing and the trailers and everything that we got about this kid, especially hearing that he had to get an acting coach, I mean, it just looked like it was going to be an absolute mess, and this kid is portraying Han Solo, so there's just really no way he could win. But man, did he do a good job. I mean, at a certain point, after the first, 15 minutes of the movie, for me, he just faded in, and he was Han Solo. Alden Ehrenreich was not on screen anymore. It was a younger version of Harrison Ford's Han Solo. And I gotta say, I don't know how he managed this, but there were so many times, either be it through his speech or a certain look he would get, or heck, even the Han Solo smolder. He looked exactly like Harrison Ford, and it impressed the heck out of me. And of course, we gotta talk about the great, the wonderful, childish Gambino, Donald Glover. Donald Glover is one of the greatest artists working today, not just in film. If you guys haven't seen his music video, This Is America, you really should, because there's a lot of really impactful information in there. But him as Lando Calrissian, like I said, although between Han and Lando, there are certain issues I have with the characterization of Lando Calrissian in this film, I thought Donald Glover did a fantastic job. I loved him in Community. I loved him in Spider-Man Homecoming. I mean, this guy is... And of course, like I already said, I love him as Childish Gambino. I mean, I loved it. And the relationship that Lando has with Han, once again, it's one of those things where I can see where the relationship is going, and I can't wait to see what they do next. Now, when it comes to introducing new characters into the Star Wars universe, there's always that chance that you're not going to latch onto any single one of them, and it's going to be a little bit nerve-wracking, and you're just going to hate the film for it. And partially, yeah, that's one of my biggest issues with Solo Star Wars story. As I already said, most of the characters in this film, you just don't really care about. However, there was one new addition that I did actually get latched onto, and that was Kira, played by Emilia Clarke. She does such a good job in here. She's on screen for a lot more time than I thought she was going to be, and the entire time, I was just curious about who her character was, what her characterizations were going to be, what her mannerisms were. And although I do have my problems with her character, like I do with every other character in this film, for instance, they don't exactly provide you a lot of backstory with her, and throughout her entire journey, you don't exactly learn a lot about her. But then again, it seems as though they are setting Solo to be a trilogy of films, so I'm sure that we'll get more characterization and stuff from her as time goes on. But for right now, I thought this was a very good introduction to her character. And the cinematography and action scenes in here are just flat out gorgeous. I mean, some of the best out there. I wouldn't say they're on par with the cinematography from Star Wars The Last Jedi, but I mean, it was pretty darn good. And if I'm going to be perfectly honest, there's one particular thing that happened at the end of this movie. It made me scream like a child, and it got me super excited because it proves there are more possibilities for where they can take Star Wars down the road. And it's something I wasn't expecting. I never thought they would actually put this edition into a Star Wars live action film, but they did, and I couldn't be more hyped. Guys, at the end of the day, you gotta know who you are when you're seeing Solo: A Star Wars Story. Me personally, like I've been saying throughout the entirety of this video, I think the movie is fun. I think it's a fun summer adventure. But the pacing, the characterizations, and some of the directions, yes, they are atrociously terrible. I understand that. But I can't really help the fact to say that throughout the entirety of this film, because of the performances by Alden Ehrenreich and Donald Glover and everybody else in this movie, it reminded me of some of my favorite moments from the original Star Wars trilogy. And honestly, Alden Ehrenreich, there were so many points where he reminded me straight up of Harrison Ford. So I don't know what your answer is going to be to all of this, but me, I had a blast watching it, and I'll say that Solo: A Star Wars Story is a good casual watch. Oh, and by the way, if you're going to drop by my comment section and just be completely negative, just do me a favor and buzz off. Listen, guys, it's our own opinion. Star Wars is a great franchise. All of us were grown up with it. Just because you have a different opinion than we do, that doesn't mean you get to act like a complete jerk and think you know better than we do. We don't know better than you do, and you don't know better than us, okay? We're just here to have fun. We're here to watch movies. We're here to be a Star Wars community, okay? If I had fun with Solo and you didn't, that is perfectly fine. Let's talk about our differences. Let's not yell at each other, scream at each other, name call, because in all honesty, to be perfectly honest, that makes all of us look like a 5-year-old. But I love you guys all the same. Let's be civil here. Let's have fun. So, as always, it is what you say that matters. So have you seen Solo: A Star Wars Story? And what did you think of it? More importantly, between the performances of Alden Ehrenreich, Emilia Clarke, and Donald Glover, who in your opinion gave the best performance? Whatever your thoughts may be, leave them down in the comment section below so we can get a conversation started. And if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right there and subscribe and become part of the fray of nerds who love cinema. You all have a fantastic day.